Hey everybody, welcome to this new video. And today we have with ourselves Chintan Guljan. He is a security engineer manager. Hey Chintan bro, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kathan?
I'm fine. So what are we going to learn today?
Yes, so today we are going to learn how large corporate companies do their external attack surface management. And it's kind of a new area. There are a lot of vendors also coming into this market and space. So yes, we are going to learn this.
Okay, that's great. Let's begin.
Sure. So yes, as the topic suggests, external attack surface management, what we are going to learn, whatever we are going to learn is from the blue side, so blue team side. So consider if you are working within a large product based company and then you are looking at this topic, not from the bug bounty hunter or a penetration tester or a teamer. There is a slight part for that as well in the slide deck, but I'll let you know. So yeah, let's start. So I'll give you a bit of my introduction. So my name is Chintan. I have got 9 years of experience in cybersecurity industry. I'm working as a security engineering manager in one of the large retail company in UK. I did my master's in security from UK back in 2013 and 14. Um, these are a couple of my certifications. CCF and CCFH are from CrowdStrike company, so they have the product, and CTI is from Threat Intelligence. Because I worked in 9 years in the industry, so my interest lies from the offsec to blue team. So basically, I started my career as an offensive security guy, and then slowly I did my transition to blue team and defensive security. So I did a range of the things throughout my career, but these are a couple of areas which where my interest is. And throughout my career, I have written couple of articles, couple of tutorials and everything. And I regularly share things on my LinkedIn, but nowadays it's hard to manage my content on the on all the platforms. So I have created this repo, FYI, for your information. And whatever I have written throughout my career, I have dumped everything over here. And everything is divided into categories, so you can go and have a look. This is my nickname, Froggy. I keep this nickname since I started playing some games online, and I'm also carrying this nickname in my cybersecurity industry. Okay, let's get started. So, in the external attack surface management, what are we going to learn today? So, basically, this what is it, why it is important, and how we can do it effectively, and what are the benefits, and some tips and tricks. So, let's start with uh, where does it fit into the cyber landscape? So basically, in cybersecurity, there are so many different fields within offensive security as well as defensive security. For example, in offensive, there could be red teaming, pen testing, and other stuff. And in blue team, vulnerability management, SIEM, SOC, threat intelligence, so many things. So if we look at the large organizations, so this can be the standard organization structure in terms of the cybersecurity is coming from Microsoft. So basically, on the upper level, you have the organization leadership where the board management sits, CISO, CTO, and all those people, and then you have managers, senior managers, associate directors on the second area, and then we have the executors. When I say executors, these are the people who work uh, in technology and they execute stuff, they do the testing and auditing and all those stuff. So this is a large structure of any big company in terms of the cybersecurity landscape. And now if we look at the external attack surface management, now that can be a shared responsibility among multiple teams within the technical risk management. I would think that it's a responsibility of vulnerability management team, because not only we are checking at the unknown assets for this external attack surface management, but when we find those unknown assets, we are also looking at the risk of those assets. So I think vulnerability management is a single team across the large organization who would handle the all vulnerabilities of entire company. So they have all the scanners and they scan stuff 24 by 7, weekly schedules and everything. So I think this is the responsibility of vulnerability management, but they alone themselves, they can't do it. So they need support from different team, for example, apps team or threat intelligence team, SOC team, and other teams. So let's start with what. So in order to understand why this is an important topic, for example, if you look at some company, you would think that why they need to find their external attack surface management because they might be scanning on 24 by 7. So what extra element is in this topic? So in order to understand that part, we have to understand how big a company can be. So this is a sample organization structure of a large company. Now it can be consulting, it can be product-based company. So let's take a reference of any product-based company, for example, Reliance. So they will have a CTO over here, CISO and security director would be reporting to them. Now, if we look at the Reliance, they have multiple horizontal sectors, transport, retail, food industry, telecommunication and all. Each division might have so many teams, engineering, production, R&D, marketing, and so many teams. This is just a sample. I haven't mentioned all the teams here. And each engineering team might be working at different location, and within each location there would be multiple teams. So when I say multiple teams, it's app team, infra team, security architecture team, VM team, DB team, and all those teams, Linux team. And for all the teams, they might have internal as well as external assets, and they are also categorized into on-prem assets, cloud assets, third-party assets, subsidiaries asset, and all. So this is just one way transition from top to bottom. Now, if we draw the entire diagram for all the teams, so just imagine how many numbers of assets a company can hold, right? So when I say assets, those are both internal and external. So if we look at the external assets, there could be, thousands of assets which can be online. And I think we all know that when we do, subdomain enumeration on a large target, we get subdomains in thousands and sometimes lakhs as well, right? So that is the reason, because the organization is so long, so large, and they hold so many assets within different teams. So that is the reason we need to do an external attack surface management. The reason I chose this topic is because the organization is large, they have thousands of assets, but they don't know what assets they are exposing on the internet and what assets they are having a security. So for example, I have 10 assets, but I'm sure that I have only 7 assets on the internet. But if someone can find other 3 assets on the internet as well, which I wasn't aware of working within the company, then there is a risk for me. So that is why this topic is indeed needed. So let's start with what. So if we talk about, let's take an example of eCorp. It's just a random name which I started here. So large enterprise organizations, external assets. So when we talk about external assets, there are two types: known and unknown. Our area of focus will be unknown one. So how these can be done? So there is a simple formula. When you want to do this thing, you have to find unknown assets and then assess the risk, reduce the risk, and manage in future. Well, it looks so simple with this formula, but we can now narrow down into each activity one by one. So why this is important? Because for known assets, the risk is known. For example, if I know my 10 assets are on the internet, I will be scanning it frequently throughout my security scanners, let's say Qualys, Nexpose, and all. We will manage it because we have scheduled scans, then we get the vulnerabilities, we talk to teams, they patch it. It will be automated through my security scanner. I might be also doing occasional penetration testing and red teaming on those assets, and teams will close their vulnerabilities and then we will rescan. So this cycle is always ongoing for known assets. Now if we talk about the unknown assets, if teams do not know what are their assets which are on the internet, they will have no clue at all what is the risk going on, because if the assets are not known, then they might not be scanning it in the security scanners, and they might not be talking to teams in order to fix the vulnerabilities because they don't have any vulnerabilities clue. Now if we talk about any large organization, when I explain the structure, there could be thousands of assets. And these are some of the reasons why we need to find unknown assets and why they don't know about their assets. So maybe a company does not have a centralized asset inventory. When we talk about asset inventory, just think from a blue team perspective, every large company should have their asset inventory where it can be centrally or it can be managed regionally. For example, there is a company and they have a headquarter in, let's say, South Africa. Some of their support work is being done in India, and some of their engineering work is being done in New Zealand, right? So for example, New Zealand people might have their own asset inventory, Indian teams might have their own asset inventory. When I say own asset inventory, it could be managed on a regional basis, as well as there could be some professional and commercial asset management software. There are so many vendors out there, so they can purchase those software and they log every asset in those things. So then people want to check this asset is pertaining to which owner, then they can easily find those things. So teams, they don't have centralized asset inventory, and even if, for example, if we find something on the internet and then we report to company, then they might have no idea in the first place that this domain is belong to which internal team. So from external to internal mapping, which means I have a website on the internet, but internally on which system it talks to, and that system pertaining to that system belongs to which team. So these sort of mapping are also not there. So internal to external as well as external to internal. A company, large company, can have subsidiaries, third parties, so they don't know what are their assets and how much they are exposed, and some of the assets could be directly linked to your own parent company. So that is why this can be needed. Multiple regions across the world, which I already explained, and no centralized IS policy. When I say IS policies, means every company would have their information security policies. For example, if I define a rule but I'm not enforcing the rule, then there is no point of defining a rule. Same way, in cybersecurity domain, if there are security policies which say that you should have your asset management properly done every year or every quarter, right? And then there is no compliance team to enforce this policy or to audit these policies, then people might not follow the rules. So these are some of the reasons which I think due to which people don't know what risk they have, because they have unintentional assets exposed on the internet, but there could be multiple reasons. So now we'll go into how this can be done. So there are four simple steps. Find unknown assets. Now, when I talk about unknown external assets, there are four categories: on-prem assets, cloud assets, third party, and subsidiary. So on-prem means, for example, if I work for XYZ company, then I would have my own ASN range. Those are dedicated to me, and then my teams, some of my company's team would be launching their domain through those IP addresses, ranges, and everything. So those are on-prem. It can be hosted within my own infrastructure, or it can be hosted in the cloud. But because when I say cloud, it could be AWS and Azure, but those AWS and Azure are related to my company, because we have purchased a subscription, we have got the ranges of those things, right? So on-prem assets could be web application IP, domain, and IP range, and the same goes for third party and subsidiaries. In cloud, we have AWS and Azure. So for example, if a company has a master account on AWS, and that master account would have multiple team level accounts, and for each team level account they can start so many AWS instance and close AWS instance on a daily basis depending upon the need. And so if people do it on a daily basis, we don't know how many assets are being on the internet on a daily basis, and then spawn up and instances are stopped and spawn up again and those things. So that's why we have to find those unknown things. Now, in order to find these things, uh, we can start with the existing asset inventory. So for example, if I get some asset inventory, let's say even if it's old, let's say 2 3 years old, I can take this and that's my starting point. Then I will find subdomains, application, domain name, IP ranges, and then I will start adding those data into that spreadsheet and make sure everything that I'm finding is of my company. So that can be done. We can utilize open source tools, and most of the bug bounty hunters use these tools. So open source tools will always find some of the things related to my company in terms of IP, domain, IP ranges, and everything. We can utilize security scanners as well. So now security scanners, how can they find the unknown other assets on the internet? For example, we are scanning with Qualys, Tenable, Nextpost, NetSparker, and all those things. Now in the world there are some security scanners. So for example, if I tell the security scanner scan XYZ domain, It will scan XYZ domain, will give me the vulnerability, but they do have also capability of finding other subdomains of XYZ and then give me a list. So for example, if I'm scanning one thing here, so it will give me all the vulnerabilities, but it will also tell me based on these XYZ domain, xyz.com domain, I have the scanner has also found other subdomains. So do you think these are of your companies? Yes. Do you want to scan it? Yes. So there are some tools which have those capabilities, so we can also utilize those things. Use DNS and domain register companies of your organizations. Every large organization would register to any DNS services, for example, Ultra DNS or any other thing. And they might have rules internally that whenever something needs to be on the internet, it should go through these DNS services. So if I'm working for my company and we have a rule that I have to use XYZ DNS service to register a domain, then people should follow those things. If there is a team member within my company which registers some .com domain, but it goes through GoDaddy or some other hosting provider, then that's a violation of rules. So if any company has a paid DNS service, that can be a good source of point in order to find IP ranges, domain names, and subdomains. There are commercial solutions for finding unknown assets. They do the same thing. I mean, not always same thing, but also a couple of things. So whatever we are doing with the open source tools, they take this open source tool, they change and modify the code, and not only the modify code, but they will also add more capabilities into those open source tools. Or maybe they are writing their own tools starting from scratch, and then they are providing, okay, if you give us one top level domain, let's say xyz.com, we will find all the subdomains, IP ranges, certificate, and everything for you. We will also categorize, we will also provide you in the nice UI in the panel, and those are all your company assets. So there are commercial solutions which we can take help. And then we should have automation frequency. For example, in order to find unknown assets, we need to do all these things. But at the same time, we need to check how frequently we can do this. If I'm doing it weekly, if I'm doing it monthly. So yeah, we need to set the automation frequency. Uh, Intelligence automation for finding delta, which means let's say I have 10 assets. I'm doing this entire automation which found 15 items for me. So the delta is 5. Basically, in this week, we have found 5 new assets, right? So whatever automation you do, you must have intelligent automation. So basically, you find so many assets, check with your asset inventory, find what are the new things out there. And not only what are the new things, but also you need to check in in this week it has found 15 new assets, but out of 15, 3 are new, but at the same time 7 assets which were there in the asset inventory are not up there. So it could be couple of assets are new, but couple of assets are already closed or decommissioned or taken offline. So you need to have that level of automation and intelligence automation of finding delta. We can also utilize threat intelligence solution for any organization to find unknown assets, because as I said, in this organization structure, threat intelligence is one team which is talking to low level team, management team, and upper level team. So to upper level team, they will provide the overall risk of the organization, but low level, because they have more data sources, they can help VM team, they can help SOC team to find more assets which are of your organization, and then we can also use that feed. So it's basically doing entire thing, providing automation and providing intelligent automation. How many new items we have found this week, how many old items which are not found on the internet this week, and so on, right? So that is our main first task, finding unknown assets, and we can do it with all these things. Now, the second step is assessing a risk. So when we talk about the risk, so risk comes from so many things. So if we talk about vulnerability, then there's a technical risk. We get the vulnerabilities from traditional vulnerability scanners, Qualys, Nexpose, NetSparker, Acunetics, as well as Nuclei and other open source tools, right? But if I forget about the vulnerability, what other things are the risks? Bad patch management, for example, we often find Apache version out of date, jQuery out of date. That's a bad patch management. So when I say bad patch management, if my traditional scanner finds 50 different assets with Apache out of date, then there is definitely something going on within my company because I might not have a proper patch management policies, right? So I can go to all the teams and ask them to update their assets, but at the same time, I should go to the senior manager, senior director, and ask them we might not be following the patch management practice due to which people are keeping their softwares out of date. So we might need to implement that policy, might need to enforce those policies. So, here all the things are reactive. When I say reactive, we find vulnerabilities, we talk to team, we close. That's a reactive approach. Here, it's a proactive approach. When I say proactive, which means we went one step further, talk to senior manager, and fix this item at root cause by setting up the best patch management practices. Okay, so this is how reactive and proactive works. So if there are no vulnerabilities, that does not mean there is no risk. There could be some other things. For example, if there is a rule in your company that all the websites, public facing websites, should be behind the web application firewall. Now, when we scan it in security scanner, it did not find any security vulnerabilities because it might be a good website, good secure code. But when I checked that website was not protected by web application firewall, let's say Akamai or Cloudflare or other things, right? So even that's a risk for me because if there are no vulnerabilities today, it does not mean there won't be any vulnerabilities tomorrow, right? So I need to also fix that part. I need to take that application behind the web, right? So likewise, in the bad practice, company might not have patch management solution, company might not have all the websites behind WAF. They might not be good at certificate management. For example, if I renew the certificate now, certificate expires in 6 months, and then I don't renew it for another 2 years, 3 years, right? So that's the case. So it could be so many things on the bad practice management. There are also so many things in security hygiene. If an IP address does not have any vulnerability, but let's say it has 3389 port open, RDP port open, then we know that RDP, we have we have so many cases where RDP is more vulnerable, SMB port is more vulnerable. So in my point of view, that IP is still at risk, even if it does not have any vulnerability, right? So basically, if the riskiest ports are open, then there is a risk. If riskiest panels are open, there is a risk. So basically, if we follow the risk part, then we are not only talking about the vulnerabilities we find from scanner, but any other thing which poses a risk to my company. So that's it. That is how risk management should be done. Okay. So in order to do that, we can ask some of the questions to ourselves. How would you see an asset from an attacker's point of view? Basically, when I say UC, means let's say you're working in a blue team for your company. If you find an asset and then you see that, how would you see that asset as from an attacker's point of view? Is it for your interest or not? For example, if I find a IP which has a port 3306 open MySQL, so yes, that's a point of interest for me, even if it does not have any vulnerability, but I would still go spend some time on it. So you can ask this question to yourself: what critical data could store or connect to in the backend? Talking about 3306 port, I can think that maybe this asset internally might be connected to some database, or maybe some server which might have database, or maybe fetching some of the sensitive information from the host, right? So we just have to think those things. For example, if there is a marketing website and I try to hack it, I can think what critical data it could store in the backend for some. Now, there is not a definitive answer for this second question, but you can think, and that will narrow down your attack path. If I have 10 assets, but if I ask these two questions to myself, I will narrow it down to 5 assets, which are point of interest, and then I'll start my testing on those things. So if you're in blue team, then you will start your risk assessment for those 5 items. Does it need to be on the internet? So when I say riskiest panel open, so for any company, there are two types of application. One is public facing, one is colleague facing. So when I say public facing, that means all the website, marketing website, and those things which we see on a day-to-day basis. When I say colleague facing, that means Jenkins, then uh, let's say some VPN portal open, Jenkins portal open, and some admin panel open, PHP my admin, and all those things. Now, these are the things which are not made for the public use. These are for the colleague use. Let's say there is a company, they have two database, or let's say application core team. sitting in, let's say, India as well as some other part. Now they both use SaaS tool, let's say open source, any tool, let's say SonarCube, right? Now they are keeping the SonarCube portal on the internet so that Indian team can also log in into that portal from the internet, and other countries team can also log in into that portal, and then they can scan their application for finding vulnerabilities through secure code or source code vulnerabilities, right? Now, in my opinion, that's a risk because it's a riskiest panel to be on the internet. Now, in terms of the assessing risk, you can keep that portal on the internet, but maybe it should be restricted to only management IP only, which means that panel should be only accessed through VPN, through some IP. So there is a risk, right? So you need to ask question, does this panel or does this IP, does this certificate should be on the internet? If yes or no. Is this a colleague facing application or public facing? So that's the main area. So we are talking about application, but it can be also IP address, because if IP address is there and it has some port open, then that IP address should be on the internet or not. That's the question. So let's continue with the step third, reducing a risk. So when we talk about reduce risk reduction, there are two ways. Traditional mitigations are official patch, configuration changes, workaround patches, which we all know. Official patch, let's say, it comes from vendor, um, Adobe, Microsoft, Java. Configuration changes, we always make it. Let's say you go into cPanel, make some configuration changes to not disclose a server header and other things. Workaround patches, if there are no official patches, no configuration changes, then there could be some workaround fix and other things. But if we look at these things, riskiest panel, unmanaged assets means there are some applications or IPs which are there on the internet. They have certificate expired, let's say more than 2 3 years ago, and they have all the outdated technologies. So if I look at all the things, then I can make a decision that this asset might be unmanaged or abandoned asset. It is there on the internet, right? It is of my company, but people are not using it. So I need to contact team, take them offline. So if we look about security, hygiene, and bad practices, then these are some of the recommendations. Take that asset offline from the internet. Defense in depth, which means you restrict those assets to certain IP addresses only, not for the public use. You put them behind WAF. Also make sure all the internal hosts which are related to that external facing application or IP are network segregated and other things. So that's called defense in depth. There could be so many other things in this as well. Talking about ports, if there is IP which has SMB port open, 3306 port open, MSSQL port open, we need to ask question, do these ports need to be online, need to be on the internet facing? If no, then close the port, use the firewall to filter ports and other things. Do you need to decommission assets if assets are there on the internet and which are not managed? They have expired certificate, they have out of date operating system, the home page is blank, and then errors and other things. So when we talk about risk reduction, we need to ask these questions to ourselves. Does this port need to be on the internet? If no, close the port, filter it. Does this asset need to be internet? No, then decommission it, take it offline. Should I close filter port or update the software package or install or software package install on it, or both? Which means, let's say there is an IP address which says there is a SSH port open on that IP address. Now that SSH port has, let's say, 6 point something open SSH version. It has multiple vulnerabilities. Now that vulnerabilities, all those vulnerabilities are found by my traditional scanner, which is Qualys or Tenable, let's say. Okay. Now there are two ways to fix this item. If I upgrade the OpenSSH, it will fix all the vulnerabilities. But before then that, I need to ask this first question to myself. For this IP address, does that SSH port need to be open on the internet? If no, then I have to close and filter. If I do this, risk will be also remediated. If I do this, risk will be also remediated. But in my opinion, updating software on that package will remediate the risk partially only, because tomorrow that software might be also become out of date. So if we don't need that thing on the internet, we should just close or filter. If I need to do both, because obviously if we close the filter, or if we close the port or filter the port, we still need to update the software. But if I need to do both of the things, then what should I prioritize? I would definitely prioritize taking that port offline and then update the software. So yeah, these are the questions which we can ask. can this be fixed from the central management team? Let's say for all the out of date software, let's say there is a centralized application team, and they write the policies which softwares to be used in the application code and all the things, and how you can provide the patch management and to those things. And if we find through so many source is that these are the bad practices being followed, we will definitely contact XYZ responsible team and they will update that software. But at the same time, I need to talk to some central team and ask them, okay, can you update these softwares from your central management to all these, application server if it is not a problem, or can you at least provide these patches to all the teams and then they will go and fix all those stuff. So these are the things we can use. Root cause analysis, as I mentioned, if we find common pattern in all the vulnerabilities, we need to talk to some central team or senior member of the organization and ask them to define policies and standard for common bad practices and make sure those are being followed. So again, just to repeat, find unknown asset, assess risk, reduce risk, and basically all the things you are seeing on the right hand side for all these points are the examples. But what you really need to do are all the things in the questions. You need to ask these questions for yourself to find unknown asset, assess risk, and reduce risk. Last, manage in future. So let's say you found unknown assets in the first step, then what you would do to complete the cycle. So find asset owner, identify asset priority. So for example, some of the assets are just marketing websites, static websites. So in my opinion, out of 1 to 20, the asset priority would be 3 or 4 only. But let's say if there is some website which has Apache, MySQL and everything, and it has also login and everything, right? So in my opinion, that asset priority would be 15, between 15 to 20 out of 1 to 20. So identify asset priority, add asset into asset inventory. So I have some asset inventory which is out of date, but I find new asset. So I need to put them into existing asset inventory, then scan it frequently. Let's say some of the applications you will find new on the internet which require once in a month scan, some require once in a week scan, and those things. Then find vulnerabilities, talk to teams will close vulnerabilities but also do the occasional pen testing and red teaming. And then internal and extra hardware software metrics. So there could be some asset management team within your company who would log all the assets for your company, whether it's a hardware, software, when it was purchased, when it was, those things. So it's called the asset procurement team or some other thing, depending upon the all the organization. It could be different name. So we need to complete this cycle and we need to continuously work on this cycle in order to find external assets. So here, how to manage newly found assets. So define asset priority with data classification methodology. Now, when I say data classification, which means for that application or for that IP, what is holding, what it holds in the backend. So it could be directly talking to database, it could be directly talking to some customer information. So is it, can I call that asset as a sensitive in terms of GDPR? Yes, no. It could be some different data classification methodology. Now, this data classification is a separate whole topic, and there are separate best practices how we can do these things. So yeah, we need to do that. Add into asset inventory, scan it frequently. When I say scan it frequently in all your scanners, it has so many different types. When we talk about scanning things, we just put the application into scan, but do we need for each different application depending upon what it holds, it could be, do we need to scan this application inside and outside authentication or just outside? Do we need to have a separate scan profile or the same scan profile? Do we need to scan it weekly, monthly? Do we need to ignore things in terms of scanning? For example, if I scan entire website but I will ignore the contact us page because due to the autonomous nature of security scanners, it may be filling so many forms on the internet, and that will open so many tickets in the backend for that company. So we need to also, so if I say scan it frequently, it also comes with so many questions inside. So these are just an example. Security manager would think about more things in terms of documenting everything and completing these cycles. And remediating assets, again, there are multiple ways which I already explained, official patch and then some other thing. And these are also again examples. So depending upon asset priority and criticality, it can be so many things. If we do these things, and again, we are talking about only unknown assets, which company does not know. We are not talking about the known assets, right? So we will find so many legacy assets on the internet. People spawn so many things within the company and they don't know what they're exposing, and maybe they forget after 1 week or 1 month that that was the test website, that was the UAT website, and I needed to close that thing from the internet. So people forget things. So you will find legacy assets with this entire activity. You will find exposed services. So when I say exposed services, could be some sensitive port open on the internet or some colleague facing application on the internet. You will find so many out of date, end of life software, unnecessary internet facing asset. Again, it's similar to this one. Then you will find RUG deployments. That means if a developer thinks that this is a UAT website and I need to test it, so they make it that website online on the internet, but it does not provide authentication, and tester from outside can also talk to this UAT website, and that UAT website is using the same data which is used in the production. So if these sort of bad practices are there, you can find with your continuous visibility for that attack surface of your infrastructure. Disclose sensitive data, sensitive app discovery, RUG APIs, and all the things you can find with this activity. So when I say this activity, I'm talking about these 4 steps, and it start with the finding unknowns, basically whatever you don't know. So yeah, these are the things. I think we are at the end of presentation. So if any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Uh, so Chintan bro, like this intelligence team, threat intelligence team, is
Yeah.
it like a centralized team or like only region wise?
No, it can be. It has to be central team. So one team which provides threat intelligence to internal teams for the all the management staff as well as technical staff and all. So I'll give you an example. Threat intelligence team would get, so this arrow is coming from outside on the internet, so they will get so many feeds from here, Shodan, other things, and news and other stuff. Okay, and then they will check what is the risk to their entire organization. Okay, now out of those things there could be some of the risks related to phishing attacks or some campaign is going on against their activities, and some of the things would be related to technical things, people are trying to exploit the system application and all. So when these people get all the things from the internet, they will bifurcate those things and provide the strategic insights to the management and technical insights to the IT operation and management insights to the management people. So it can be one team. They can so for example, if I'm cooking something, I'll be providing all the dishes depending upon whom I'm providing. Some people like this thing, some people like that thing and all. So it has to be definitely a central team.
Okay, and like from the bug bounty point of view,
Yeah.
when we report bugs to these big companies, so
Yeah.
who handles it? Like what directly vulnerability management team or like threat intelligence?
uh, it depends on the organization structure. So let's say vulnerability management team could be one of them. Let's say incident management team can also things. But in other words, let's say if you report something, it goes to incident management team. But let's say incident management team is just managing the incidents, then they will pass that ticket to vulnerability management team. Then vulnerability management team will assess and produce POCs and everything. And if those are legit, then they will talk to application team and so on. And it could go to directly application team, and application team can forward to some other teams. So it depends on the organization structure and their policies. So ideally,
Okay.
it should be within the SOC item. So it should be
Mhm.
vulnerability management or incident management, SOC. These are the 3 teams.
Okay. So like there are three kinds of security teams which handles all over
Yeah.
security of the organization.
Not three,
Okay.
so many teams. If
Yeah.
I look at the cybersecurity posture within the blue team, so there could be so many teams. I'll show you one example. So this is a CISO mind map for created by Sans company. So in any organization, I'm talking about all the blue team and inside the organization, not anything from the outside. So there could be legal and compliance team, which can do so many things. There could be risk management team, which can do so many things. If I talk about the security operation and SOC, then SOC is divided into prevention, detection, and response. Within response, there could be so many teams, and so many teams. So vulnerability management, vulnerability scanning is part of detection team. Response is incident response, forensic investigation, and prevention is SIEM, SOC, IDS, and all those things, right? So yeah, even within blue team, there are so many teams. Bug bounty is also part of the detection within the SOC.
Okay. And one generalized question,
Yeah.
like we have like in large organization, we have lots of these security teams behind. So what is the reason? Like many people are finding critical bugs and all over, like on Apple, Facebook, and all that. What could be the reason?
Yeah, the reason can be anything. As I mentioned, for external attack surface management, some of the reasons are that they did not have asset inventory management and all the things, right? And then they don't have information security policies and best practices and other things. There could be there could be some other things. For example, um, application team is not provided with a secure code training, and even if they provide it, they don't follow it. If they follow it, then no one is there to check it, right? And because we have the large stake of the organization, they do have security engineer, they do have penetration tester, red teamers, and all the things. But why we find things in bug bounty community? Because bug bounty community is so large. If I talk about one application, million researchers are researching on that application. Now if you look from the inside company, that company cannot hire million researchers within their company, right? Because their area of cybersecurity is limited depending upon people's knowledge, right? They hire the best people, but still that's not the 100%, right? Compared to million researchers in the bug bounty. That's why we are still able to find things.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
great.
like having five security engineers versus million attackers. Okay, so based on the number who's gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So thank you, Chintan bro, for this lots of information. And
No,
I was like that time I was thinking when the presentation was going on, like most of people find these exposed panels and all this like from Shodan and all those. So that's kind of we are like doing these external assessments and all this.
right. So what you guys are doing and we guys are doing in bug bounty world is finding things, reporting the things, right? And what I have
Yeah.
presented in the talk is someone sitting in the organization and how can they
Yeah.
find these things before someone reports to them. So that's the main thing.
Yeah.
I have also seen many organizations which have already automated nuclei on a daily basis. So nowadays, if you submit bug
Oh.
to them, they are already known to them, right? So because they have
Yeah.
also mindful researchers and they know how bug bounty community works, so they automate all these things before someone
Okay,
reports to
so
them.
that's one of the reason we get nuclei report as duplicate.
Duplicate means someone already reported and that has been triaged. But
Yeah.
if a team says that no, we are already aware of this, that means they might have
Mm-hmm.
implemented internally. But again, in the bug bounty world, just compare. We used to find things in 2012 and 13. Any website you will straight away get access on search bar, right? Nowadays it is not possible.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reason is web application firewall. They have evolved a lot in terms of signature, Akamai, Cloudflare,
Yeah.
or Encapsula, and all those things. People still find bypass, but I would still gauge the success of this web because even if I can, let's say, bypass the Encapsula or Akamai, but imagine how many number of attacks that web has restricted compared to one bypass, right? So it could be
Yeah.
thousand attacks it has restricted. One bypass was that. So yes, we are happy to pay for that research, but again, it also saved a lot of money in terms of restricting those thousand attacks and thousand vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And that is the
That's
reason not a lot of people find things from their scanner and easy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's true. So, Chintan bro, before we close, do you have any last message to the audience?
No last message, because this is fairly simple topic which I explained. It's just that because this is new, not a lot of companies are doing that. So people who are working in blue team, they need to raise this concern to their security directors and manager that what we know is managed and assessed in our risk management. But what about the things that we don't know? Do we have any visibility? If we don't have, do we need to find any vendor who can provide us that visibility, things that we don't know? And if yes, then they should invest money in that area as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. So, bye bye.
No worries. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Many hackers will be appearing on this channel in the future. So if you want to subscribe, do it now rather than later. And until next time, peace.